It's a memorial for the people who died in the Holocaust. Dear Tim and Moby, how did the Holocaust happen? From Dora. The Holocaust was the systematic murder of 6 million Jews during World War II. It seems impossible to imagine how human beings could do such terrible things. But it didn't just happen out of the blue. The path to genocide began years before the killing started.
Baba Booey.
You playing that good
Genocide is when one group of people tries
G.
to wipe out another group because of who they are. In the Holocaust, the Nazis were trying to eliminate all Jews. The Nazis were a German political party whose leader was Adolf Hitler. In the 1920s and 30s, they rose to power by promising to restore Germany to its former glory. The country had suffered a humiliating defeat in World War I. Then, in 1929, the Great Depression, a global economic collapse, dealt the Germans another blow. Formerly a world power, Germany was on the verge of total collapse. Hitler and the Nazis insisted that the nation could regain its greatness. They said true Germans were part of a superior race, which was destined to rule the world. They just had to destroy the enemy secretly undermining them from within. That enemy, according to the Nazis, was the Jews. This antisemitism, racism against Jews, fueled the Nazis' rise to power. Antisemitism has a long history in Europe. Going back to the Middle Ages, Jews were viewed with suspicion for not following Christianity. Their differences made them targets of prejudice and violence. By the 20th century, most people thought that Europe had left that past behind, especially Germany. It was a center of modern thought and culture. The Nazis stirred up old prejudices with anti-Semitic propaganda, using newspapers, movies, and other mass media to push a particular message. They depicted Jews as rats or insects, blood-sucking enemies weakening Germany. The goal was to convince German citizens to turn on their neighbors.
I like it, good G.
In the 1932 election, the Nazi Party won a third of the seats in parliament. Within a year, Adolf Hitler was appointed the leader of Germany. 1 month later, someone burned down the Reichstag, the German parliament building. No one really knows who set the fire, but Hitler used it to seize more power. He blamed his party's political opponents and had them arrested. Citing national security, Hitler abolished freedom of speech, protest, and the press. He became the country's dictator, or absolute ruler. His personal security force, the Schutzstaffel, or SS, became the country's national police. They built large outdoor prisons called concentration camps because they concentrated large groups of people in one place. These were used to jail political enemies of the Nazi Party. Meanwhile, Hitler's regime began enemies of the Nazi Party. Jews were banned from serving in the army and government and as doctors. Quotas, or limits, were placed on the number of Jewish students. In 1935, the Nuremberg Laws defined German and Jew as different races. One law stated that only people of German blood could be citizens of Germany, and only citizens had political rights. The Roma Sinti, another ethnic minority, were targets of similar regulations. Other laws singled out gay people, communists, and the disabled. Anyone who didn't fit the Nazi idea of the master race. Jews were forced to wear yellow stars so people would know who to target. And citizens were encouraged to harass and attack them on the streets. On November 9, 1938, violence exploded in a wave of attacks. It looked like a riot had just suddenly happened. But we now know that it was secretly led by SS officers acting on specific orders.
Why are you running?
Many wore regular clothes to blend in with the crowd. Neighbors joined in to destroy Jewish-owned shops, burn synagogues, and murder 90 Jews. Another 30,000 were arrested and sent to concentration camps. It was called Kristallnacht, or the Night of Broken Glass. Many Jews had already left Germany. After Kristallnacht, more and more tried to escape. They sought safety in other countries, at embassies, and at the borders. Most were turned away. The U.S. refused to change its laws to allow more European Jews to move here. Countries around the world expressed sympathy, but kept their doors closed. In May of 1939, a ship called the St. Louis arrived in Cuba. It carried 900 Jewish refugees from Germany, all with legal entry visas. But at the last minute, Cuba denied them entry. The U.S. turned them away too, and so did Canada. Captain Gustav Schroeder refused to return to Germany until his passengers found safe harbor. Eventually, they were divided among France, Britain, Belgium, and the Netherlands. On September 1st, 1939, Germany invaded Poland, touching off World War II. Within a year, most of Europe was under German control. This brought the fates of millions more Jews into the hands of the Nazis, including those who thought they had escaped, like the passengers from the St. Louis. Jews were stripped of their property and forced into ghettos, walled-off sections of cities. Conditions were extremely crowded, with little food and almost no medicine. From there, they were shipped off to a vast network of concentration camps. The Nazis now had hundreds of these prisons across Europe. Prisoners spent their days doing hard labor, and their nights crammed into unheated sheds. They died by the thousands from torture, disease, and starvation. Well, for the Nazis, none of this went far enough. So Hitler's administration devised a final solution: total extermination. Families were rounded up and shot by the thousands. And in late 1941, the Nazis began to build death camps with gas chambers. These were airtight rooms that were filled with deadly poisonous gas. Prisoners were told they were showers, but the showerheads poured gas, not water. By the end of the war, the Nazis had killed 6 million Jews, plus 5 million others. When the Allies won the war, the camps were liberated. Photographs of skeletal survivors, gas chambers, smokestacks, and piles of bodies shocked the world. People struggled to comprehend the scale of the Nazis' crimes. Party leaders were prosecuted at a special court in the German city of Nuremberg. Accusing them of murder didn't seem big enough to fit their crimes, so they were charged with a new category of offense: crimes against humanity. The newly formed United Nations took steps to prevent another Holocaust. Its countries agreed to work together to root out and punish genocide, and to welcome immigrants fleeing from violence. Tragically, genocides do still happen around the world, and governments rarely act in time to stop them. But as
Bruh.